Okay, looks like we are on time now, so let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And if we haven't met before, my name is Marcel Plosky. I am the business development rep here at ERP-One. Before we get into it, I wanted to provide you with a background on ERP-One and who we are. ERP-One is an ERP solutions provider. We provide consulting for JDE and technical, application and development and project management. We also provide long-term support via staff augmentation and managed services. Our team has over 20 years of experience working with clients as an extension of their own team, and we pride ourselves on our client-centric approach. Our goal is to help customers get the most value out of their ERP investment. Today's presentation, How JDE Update Manager Fits into Your Continuous Delivery Model, is presented by Nick Wilson. Nick is ERP-One's Innovation and Technology Lead and has been with ERP-One for over 15 years. He specializes in project management, digital transformation, architecture design and review, and upgrade planning and execution. As always, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please drop them in the comment box and we will make sure to address them at the end of the presentation. And if you do miss any points, please note this webinar is being recorded and we will be sending out the recording afterwards. I will now pass it on to Nick for the presentation. Thank you and enjoy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marcella, and welcome everybody. Our presentation today, as Marcella mentioned, is how we can use JDE Update Manager with a continuous delivery model. It is a continuation, pardon the pun, of a past webinar where we looked more discreetly at some of the JDE Update Manager features. And today we'll be looking at how some of those features fit into our model. And so our agenda for today will look like the following. We're going to do an overview of continuous delivery and what that means from Oracle's perspective, as well as from your customer perspective. We're going to look at some sample deployment methodologies, and then how that methodology applies to, or how JDE Update Manager fits into that methodology. And then we'll get into the summary and any questions if there's some. So we can get into it here. The main question is, what is continuous delivery? And this question itself is one that I'm asked often in terms of nomenclature within Oracle. How often do I have to update? How does it fit with my regular cadence of applying ESUs and other things like that? So to answer that, I've got a little bit of a timeline here, which will give us an overview of what Oracle will release and how that may fit into what we're talking about today. And so what I've come to realize or sort of experience is that continuous delivery is really akin to release management. And so what we're looking at is how are we managing the release of Oracle releases, and then how do they fit into our JDE system? And so the timeline we see below is one that starts from October, and then it crosses a 2-year mark here. And Oracle is releasing their updates in terms of ESUs and tools releases with something called they've generalized both of those components into release and then the year it's coming out in. So for example, we've got release 24 was available October of 2023. Release 25, which is upcoming, is going to be released this October. And then release 26, we will look forward to in October of 2025. And so what are the components of these different releases? And so as I mentioned, we do have a tools release component. So this is the technology, the underpinnings within JD Edwards. And the major releases correspond with the release dates of the yearly release dates from Oracle. So tools release 9.2.8 was released last year. we can look forward to what we will assume is release 9.2.9 this coming October. And then for the following year, there will be another major tools release. With those tools releases, we do have certifications that go alongside of that from a technology layer. And in between each of those major releases, we have minor tools releases, which also include mini features. So from the tools release perspective, that is where a lot of the digital platform enhancements come from in terms of orchestrations, workflow, tasks, as well as all of the new UDOs that are available. All of those are underpinned by the technology layer. We then can look at the more classic ESUs and modern development objects, UDOs. Those are released in the form of ESUs, sorry, and they encompass both fixes and features together. And so they can have a variety of bug fixes, enhancements to SARS, year-end payroll updates. All of those are rolled up, or all of those are part of the ESUs, and they get released on a weekly basis right now. But as Oracle has moved towards a more SaaS approach for their JDE updates, they have also created a cumulative update. And so this is not a new feature within Oracle. They used to be called application updates, but now they've also rolled those cumulative updates into the yearly releases. And so what that means is that when the major tools release comes out in October, it will encompass new features that are, have not been available up until that moment. But the release 25 from an ESU perspective is a cumulative release from the year prior. And so from a release management standpoint, you can start planning how you can roll out from the customer level, from your system levels. You can start to plan out how you want to deploy this to your environments and to your users. And so a question that usually comes up is how often do we need to apply these tools releases, or how often should we apply ESUs? And so there's no real, answer. There's no right or wrong answer, because JD Edwards, like it does with a lot of their functionality, leaves these questions up to you to answer. And so what works best for one customer may not work exactly, may not be ideal for another customer. And so even though this is a SaaS-like approach with a continuous delivery model, how you adopt those changes is very flexible in the normal JD Edwards way that they do things. And so because of this flexibility, you can decide for yourself how these are applied. But from some customer perspectives, if you wanted to utilize a simple way of knowing, or at least looking at how you could apply, applying the tools releases separate to the yearly release is a model that you could do. So for example, if you applied release 24 back in October of last year, you would have the cumulative update of the previous year's ESUs, as well as the tools release 9.2.8. In the following section, in the following quarter in January, there was an update to the tools release that you could apply without necessarily applying ESUs in a cumulative, or at least looking at what the total ESUs that have been released. You don't need to update all of them all at once. And so that from the tools perspective, you could actually apply those every quarter, every time they come out. The reason that you could potentially do this is that the web, there is a feature which we won't get into today called a web update, and the impact to the system on these minor updates is a lot less than on the major ones. Looking at the ESUs or the cumulative update perspective, because they do come out weekly, applying all ESUs every week is likely not a good scenario for most of us that are running JD systems. But looking at the cumulative updates, you could apply one ASU or ESU yearly, which is the roll-up of all of the fixes from the prior year. Usually those are larger projects and they could incorporate, or they will incorporate, more testing, more retrofitting and development if you've modified some of your objects. And so again, the answer is not so straightforward, but more to understand what the impacts of your current system would look like, and then making a decision of, do we need to apply this? Are we going to apply these tools releases versus the cumulative ESU update? And how often are we going to do that? Can really be dependent on yourself. So there are the same methodology, which we will look at shortly, applies to both of these larger projects that would be encompassed around the major tools releases, especially those that are around replatforming, as well as the cumulative releases that would require a lot of retrofitting potentially and development and testing, versus one-off projects for fixes and bugs and potential payroll issues, or payroll fixes, other legislative fixes, and things like that normally are bundled in a smaller ESU set that you can more easily bite off and deploy to your production environment. And so let's look at a methodology of understanding some of those fixes. Whether it's a one-off or a larger roll-up, there is a sense of having some understanding from your BAs, your SMEs or super users of what the problem is or a potential fix or features that they're looking at. Those users would look at Learn JDE, Update Center potentially, as well as the support, My Oracle support. Once they know that they want to apply an ESU, they could politely ask the CNC, being a CNC myself, what SARs are included, or I'd like to install these SARs into our system as they fix a problem or deliver a feature that I'm really interested in having. From the CNC perspective, and this is where we will get into JDE Update Manager, that CNC is going to need to look at, with the deployment server, some of the components, such as, is there a baseline ESU installed or dependent ESUs? Have we installed the cumulative update or the ASU, application software update? Then once they gather a little bit of a list, as well as following that process, which is a lot of manual work and investigation, they can then run what's called the impact analysis, and then compare against object tracking, which hopefully everybody has enabled and turned on. Object tracking is the feature that allows you to look and see what your end users are using from an application, UBE, and business function perspective. So once that CNC understands the totality of what may be installed, not just the SARs that are requested, they would then go back to the BAs, SMEs, directors, business owners, and ask for approval, essentially. Even though they have asked for a certain amount of SARs, inevitably, there's going to be a larger amount that will be installed. And those users will need to know and understand what the total impact would look like of the system. From there, we would need to go through the installation procedure of applying those packages to the environment. And then looking at that procedure, they would need to go through the special instructions, what's called table conversions, installing or updating, sorry, UDCs, as well as the data dictionary components, and then finally troubleshooting from UBE log files. Once the CNC wraps all of those things together, they can then deliver to the developers and or the BAs and SMEs the full impact of what has changed and hand over the system to the developer and the BAs for retrofitting. I've included both of those roles into here because retrofitting, it really includes some development, certainly if there's customized objects, but also looking at the data dictionary as well as the UDC values and other changes, they like processing options. They need to be evaluated for any impacts to existing processes, as well as new configuration of the features that are in place. Once that's all completed, the process then follows the normal system development lifecycle where you can go through testing and then deployment into your production environment. So from that release management methodology perspective, most of the process follows something along the lines of a customer problem or user story through configuration, development, testing and validation, and then deployment. All of that being said, where does Update Manager fit into this scheme? And so the short answer from looking at a more simplistic view is that Update Manager is going to help us with the customer problem or the user story, mainly in the sense of understanding where the features are or what that impact will look like. And then it will really help us with the installation of those components or those objects. And so that complicated diagram I had before, we're going to look at where exactly this is going to fit. And so the first section, we've got two components here. The first one will be around the box that I've highlighted, where we are understanding that user story. We need to know what is going to be applied, and then how are we going to be able to assess the full amount of change here. And so with the Update Manager, it allows JD Edwards and it allows users, CNCs, as well as potential BAs to perform those tasks in a much easier way without the use of a development client or the deployment server. And so one of the main ways that it does this is with this enhanced application called applying ESUs or updates or software updates via the web client. Previously, this was only available on the deployment server and from Change Assistant, but now users, not just CNCs, are able, with the appropriate access, are able to download ESUs and apply them into an environment for use later on. You're able to do this both with the individual ESUs as well as application updates. Our system, although we're generalizing between the larger projects and the smaller projects, we wouldn't want to have end users applying, cumulative updates without fully understanding what was inside of them. But as we see, we will have some more visibility into that shortly. In terms of the web client operation, some of the high-level components are outlined here, but the main reason that we're able to apply ESUs and ASUs through the web now is with this enhanced application, as well as giving options for CNCs to apply this in the old school way. And so they are still able to use Change Assistant and download if they want to, but there is a connection into the database directly from Change Assistant that allows those ESUs to be installed directly. I mentioned the impact analysis. There's been many features that have been growing in this area. And so there is a newly created dashboard that is accessible from the software update screen, that when you download the ESU, you are also able to look at this impact analysis directly from the web. We can see objects that will be applied. We can also see objects as well as the SAR information in contrast or in comparison to the object usage data, and that we can have a holistic view of what will be applied and what will not be applied when we go to do our testing, our retrofitting, and our development. And so with those summary features, we can see that the deployment server is really taken out of the equation, and that our BAs and SMEs potentially can be part of the process to analyze and understand those changes, while also making the process much easier to complete. Whereas previously, even if the CNC is operating most of these tasks, we are able to do them a lot easier now. Looking at the installation of the ESUs, that process as well has become much more simplified, and also enables additional users to perform these tasks, as well as orchestrating them in a more automated way. There is a sense, and there is a overall process that will allow the complete automation of installing ESUs through to deploying them into an environment, given some checks and approvals in between. But you can do all of that with the existing tool set of 9.2.8. And so the area we're focusing on here from the installation perspective is post-installation regarding special instructions, data dictionary merges, UDC merges or UDC changes, as well as table conversions. And so from the special instructions, web UDC, and glossary changes, this utility, which previously was only available on the deployment client, is now available on the web client. Again, so that it can be orchestrated, you can run or have notifications launched from here, or create tasks, which is a feature of 9.2.8. You could create a task that will have a notification for your SMEs or BAs or approvers that says, hey, you've got a special instruction to do or a UDC to check out before you merge it. And all of these components are available through the web client now, through this utility. And so when we look at the utility on the screen, we can see it shows us through a ESU by ESU basis. You can see which UDC or which ESUs or updates require UDC changes or data dictionary merges or potential special instructions. Zoning in on the UDC change looks something similar like this, where you would be able to see if the UDC did need to change. You can look at what the change will be, and then you can, from the screen, go ahead and deploy that UDC change directly. And so on the line item that's in red, the status is that not deployed, but you, once selected, it would turn green, and that you would know that it was completed and that the update was applied into that environment. Similarly, with data dictionary, you can do the same approach where it shows you the change of what it will look like, and then you do have that deployment option. One other component that is heavily CNC focused, however, is a table conversion. And this feature, again, allows you to see and automate the table conversions on package build runtime. And so after you've deployed your ESU, if there's a table that's changed, that's what a table conversion is, i.e. if a new column has been added, although Oracle doesn't do this often, it does happen, certainly. We need to know about these table changes. but this does get completed when we build and deploy the package, and it does this automatically. And so this information is very useful to our end users and BAs when looking at the total net change. Finally, looking at the UBE log files, again, mainly CNC oriented, these are displayed to us directly from the web update screen. When applying an update, if there is a problem or an issue, you can easily and quickly see and troubleshoot some of the errors. Although the update may look successful, there's sometimes some errors in the logs that we want to look at. And so this training process, CNCs know well now, but if we're going to allow other users into the system, this is an area that we would want to look at there. So in looking back at our overview, the areas we've addressed with JDE Manager have again removed the need for the deployment server to perform all of those tasks. And we've made them easier to perform on the web client, as well as giving them the ability to be orchestrated. In summary, as I mentioned here, this JDE Manager and the features as it pertains to continuous delivery gives us increased visibility to the net change. And that in itself is going to help us for project planning when we're looking at the time to deploy one ESU or the time to deploy a cumulative ESU batch if we're 1 or 2 years out of current. This is very useful for understanding how long projects are going to take and who we're going to need to involve on the testing side, as well as some of those components. From the CNC and administrative perspective, although they'll always be involved to some degree, their process and steps are also greatly reduced, especially when combining these features with the automated package build steps that have been released previously. Finally, but with these releases, as well as some uplifts to AIS and Server Manager, you could create a totally automated system for applying both ESUs and tools releases specifically for your system, along with all of the appropriate checks and balances using a combination of modern development tools as well as the classic development tools that exist with JD Edwards today. Finally, this approach really is akin to a SaaS update methodology, where it's an on-premise SaaS update methodology, where Oracle is giving you the ability to take these updates to be able to stay current on security releases, as well as certifications and application enhancements, all at the same time as leveraging your on-prem JD Edwards application. And so with that, I'll hand it back over to Marcella to give us our final wrap up and then ask any questions if we have any.
Amazing. Thank you, Nick. We did have one comment, a call out. Rob mentioned in one of the first slides of the timeline, the dates after October 24th should show 2025 and have tools 9.2.9x. So yes, apologies. Thank you for pointing that out, and apologies for any confusion there. As far as questions go, it looks like we have time for one quick question. So a common question that we do get is, what are the benefits of implementing tools releases every quarter? Is there a high level of testing?
Yes, so that is a good question. The benefit of applying those tools releases is mainly around adopting the latest features that Oracle's releasing around digital platform and specifically the orchestration studio. Although with the tools releases, you do get certifications for middleware and enhanced hardware and things like that. But the features are really, or the tools releases are really focused on those features and uplifting those features. And so if you're heavily into using the Orchestration Studio, each tools release is only they're making it easier to use and enhancing it so that your time to deployment is sooner by making your development time shorter as well.
Perfect. So we are right at time, so we will wrap it up. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. As always, I will be sending out an email with the recording as well as a post-webinar survey. We really appreciate any feedback that you guys have for us. In the meantime, please check us out on LinkedIn. We're always sharing tips and blog posts as well. We will be attending In Focus in October. If you will be there, please come visit us. We'll include more information in the follow-up email as well. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.